You should get a little warning now. And welcome to the MHCI+D admissions info session. Thanks everyone for coming. Basic protocols on this Zoom call. We're going to keep you all muted. You can use chat to ask questions as we go along. Some of them might be answered as we go along. Otherwise, we'll wait till the end. I know when I'm sharing a slide deck, I don't have an ability to really monitor the chat myself, but maybe you'll get answers from some of the other participants. And then at the end, we'll have plenty of time for questions and answers. So thank you much for coming today. Your hosts for today are Amanda Menking, our program director and an instructor in the information school here at the University of Washington, and myself, Matt Bartels. I'm the academic and career advisor, and many of you have emailed with me already this year, so welcome into us. We also have some additional hosts. 2 alum and 2 current students are joining us, and they'll be talking a bit more down the road. Jacob Burke, Kitty Ha from the class that graduated in August, the class of 2020, and Joan Williams and Fontaine Wong from the current class, the class of 2021. We'll be hearing from them as we go along. Our agenda today is pretty straightforward. We're going to start off talking a bit about the program philosophy and the curriculum, how the curriculum pieces all fit together. We'll talk about careers after that and where you can get career development during the program. And then we'll move on to talk with our guests about the student experience, a little bit on the application, though a lot of the application details you can find on our website, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. First off, we'll talk a little bit about the program itself and how we all got here. And for that, I'd like to hand it over to Amanda.
Great, thanks, Matt. So welcome, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are in the world today. I'm going to chat a little bit about who we are as a program and some of the things that are really important to us. And one of the things that's really important to us that makes us who we are and makes us unique is that we are a program. We're not a department or a school. And we're supported at the University of Washington by 4 different academic units. So we're supported by the Division of Design, Computer Science and Engineering, the Information School, and Human-Centered Design and Engineering. And these 4 academic units, as well as some others on campus, make up what we call DUB, Design, Use, Build. So DUB has been around, I think we just officially celebrated the, 15-year anniversary of being called DUB, but it's a grassroots community. Essentially, faculty from all these different academic units came together around 15 years ago and said, you know, we're all kind of working in this space of human-computer interaction and design. So let's collaborate and let's work together. And so out of this grassroots community, DUB, Design, Use, Build, Matt, if you want to advance to the next slide, I think, came our program, MHCID. And today we have a special guest that I'd like to introduce since we're talking about this collaborative community, and that is Dr. Audrey Desjardins. So she is not only an assistant professor of interaction design in the Division of Design, which is in the School of Art History and Design. She's also the graduate program chair for the Masters of Design in the Division of Design. So Audrey, do you want to say hello?
Yes, thank you so much, Amanda, and thanks for having me here this morning. I wanted to jump in first to say hi to everyone. Welcome to the session. Also to say that it is always a pleasure to collaborate with MHCI+D. I've taught in the program. I've also been part of the admissions committee and looked at a lot of applications in the past from some of the folks that have applied before. And I just wanted to jump in to just highlight the fact that we also have a Master of Design in the Division of Design. And so very often students who are looking to go back to school or go to grad school around design or interaction design have questions around how the different programs connect. And so in this kind of collaborative spirit, I wanted to highlight a few differences between the MHCI+D program and the MDes program. One of which is that the Division of Design offers a 2-year-long MDes program. And so instead of the 1-year-long MHCI+D program, which I'm sure you're going to cover today, Amanda and Matt. So in those 2 years, we do 1 year of classes, seminars and studio, mostly around design. And then the second year is a 1-year-long individual thesis project. And so for those of you who are kind of wondering, do I want to go for the cohort kind of collaborative model of MHCI+D, or am I looking for a kind of longer, more in-depth individual project? This is kind of where the distinction might happen for you. So you can look at the MDes program if you're looking for this kind of longer engagement, maybe more in-depth engagement with design. And oh yeah, okay, so Joan is leaving a comment here in the chat saying that she's been working with some of the MDes students in the interface labs. And so you could probably ask her a little bit more about this in the Q&A. Yeah, I think the one other thing that I would like to mention before passing it on back to Amanda is that we have a lot of faculty that are practicing designers in the Division of Design. And so if you already have kind of background in design and really want to advance your practice in design, you will find mentorship in the MDes. We also have faculty who are doing research through design, so using design as a method to investigate new questions, new knowledge. We also do that. So there's kind of two approaches. One is more practice-based and one is more research-based. And then finally, we are not only touching on interaction design, but we also have faculty who are in visual communication design and industrial design. So that's also a difference with the MHCI+D, which is closer to interaction design and doesn't touch as much on the graphic side of things or the physical side of things with industrial design. So I will leave a couple of links in the chat for those of you who may be interested. And I unfortunately can't stay for the whole session. I have to go teach my seminar on design, contemporary issues in design this morning. But I will also leave my email. So if anyone has questions, I'd be happy to continue the discussion with you over email after this. So thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. And do y'all have any information sessions coming up?
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me. We have a session coming up on December 10th at 9 a.m. Seattle time. And so if anyone does want to kind of come in and chat more and, you know, see some of the projects, meet some of the students, we will be hosting that. So I'll also leave a link to that in the chat. Thank you.
Great, thank you. As Audrey mentioned, she has been involved in our program, teaching in our program, and so also serves on the faculty group, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But thanks for sharing, Audrey. Matt, do you want to, I think we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, our philosophy. So Audrey shared a little bit about some of the differences. This is a question we often get is, what's the difference between MHCID versus MDes versus HCDE? So I'm going to talk a little bit about our philosophy in MHCID. So number one, we create thoughtful technology experiences through the application of human-centered design and design thinking. So the HCI is really important in MHCID, right? We are focused on technology. We are focused on human-computer interaction and applying both human-centered design and design thinking to different problem spaces within HCI. This year, I also pushed the students a little bit. Joan and Fontaine can speak to that later, to think about going beyond human-centered design, to think about non-human agents. So we had some great projects around bees and even microbiomes and home, kind of thinking beyond the human, which was really exciting. But it's very important to us to look at HCI through the lens of human-centered design and design thinking, and that's something we iterate in all of our courses. We are interdisciplinary and collaborative in teaching and in learning. So what this means, you just got a little bit of a taste of this with meeting Audrey and hearing about the DUB community, as well as how our program sits between these 4 academic units. So interdisciplinary, we have folks teach from the Division of Design, from Information Science, from Human-Centered Design Engineering, and from Computer Science. So our faculty come together from all of these different perspectives and all these different areas of expertise and training. And then in learning, we really emphasize teams, and I'm sure that the current students as well as the alums can talk to that as well. So we try to put you together in teams with folks who have complementary skills and different backgrounds so that you can learn from one another. And we support this not only in the classroom, but also through our engagement in the DUB community, which we'll talk a little bit here about in courses, in attending speaker series from different folks across disciplines, and also in engaging in mixers and different activities in that community with folks who aren't just in your program. And also, as Joan mentioned or alluded to in the chat, you have the opportunity to take electives with folks who aren't just in MHCID, who are in other programs as well. Okay. So we learn, make, critique, reflect, and refine iteratively. Yes. So throughout the year, the 11 months in the program, it really is, you know, I think of it as kind of, I'm sure you've all heard this metaphor of like the layers of an onion, right? You get exposed to an idea. You might have to deal with a lot of ambiguity and work very quickly to make something and receive critiques, give critiques, and then refine what you're doing. So that kind of kicks off with Immersion Studio, which is basically a 5-day design sprint before the fall quarter begins. And then you go through that process again and again and again throughout the courses you take, as well as in capstone. And that is really a cornerstone of our pedagogical approach, is this idea of learning, making, critiquing, reflecting, and refining iteratively, and sometimes in very short iterations. We engage industry practitioners who bring their experience and perspective to our design challenges. Absolutely. So currently, I teach full-time in the program. Scott Ichikawa also teaches full-time in the program, and he comes from a design background. So having worked at agencies, for example, for about 18 years. We also bring in a lot of guest speakers. In the user research course that I'm teaching currently, we've had 3 guest speakers so far. We will have 3 more, including one tomorrow, to kind of bring in what people are thinking about and doing currently in industry. And then, of course, in capstone, you're paired with an industry advisor or sponsor who really guides you a lot, gives you a lot of feedback. So that takes place over 20 weeks throughout the research and design and iteration process. And we encourage those connections so that you know what's happening in industry, and also so not just so that you have the academic rigor of an HCID program, but so that you're making connections with those industry practitioners as well. Okay, so our graduates have upward career trajectories by being deeply immersed in the why as well as the what. So this is something I feel very, very strongly about. So, and Joan and Fontaine can probably speak to this. So, for example, I assign academic readings because it is a graduate program. And I want all of our graduates to think carefully and intentionally about the decisions they make, whether it's in research or in design. And so a part of that is understanding where different practices come from. So understanding the disciplinary homes of different practices, understanding the strengths and the limitations of different practices, whether it's in research or design. So we really want you to graduate not only knowing what to do, but to be able to articulate why you're making certain decisions around whether it's research or design. We feel very strongly about that. And we also know from our alums that this sets you up in a way that contributes beyond, say, a boot camp experience. Matt, was that a hint? Go faster? No. I can go more quickly.
Around with a random notification.
No worries.
Sorry about that.
No, we're ready. Let's move on to program structure. And I don't know if that's, am I speaking to this or are you speaking to this?
I'll start out and then you can take it from there.
Great.
So though that's the sort of the broad philosophy that we approach the program with. And now we'll get into some of the more concrete aspects. So to start things off, I think you all probably are aware of this, but just to reiterate, we work on a cohort model for this program. And a cohort model means we bring one group of students in each year. You start with the same group of students, your classmates, and you're together for 11 months until you graduate. So you start in September, go full time until you're done in August, 11 months long. Our cohorts are typically 30 to 40 students per cohort. So it's a small group that works together through the whole year. You're not on your own path, sort of taking courses now and then and working towards graduation at a different pace. You're all together in the cohort. And we believe that makes us a lot stronger in the way that we're learning and collaborating together. Tied in with that as well is that most of the courses you take during the year are going to be part of the core curriculum. In numbers terms, about 85% of the course work of the credits that you earn are going to be in the core curriculum. You have electives around the edges that we'll talk about later, but this is a program where you're really working together with that same small cohort for the entire year. And that sort of sets us apart than a lot of programs in the way that we've structured this to bring together a group to really walk through the process and learn from that philosophy together. So next up, we're going to talk more concretely about the different pieces of the curriculum and how it all fits together. And I get to hand it back to Amanda for this.
Great. Well, I had some time to drink coffee, so that's good. A quick note about the cohort too. So each cohort has its own personality, I would say. And so that's really develops as the cohort joins. So we've had some cohorts that have not only taken classes together, but they've been quite social. We've had other cohorts who haven't been, right? They've been quite academic focused and haven't socialized. So it really changes every year depending on the makeup of the cohort. So just another note about that. So let's talk a little bit about curriculum. So as I mentioned earlier, in pre-autumn, you'll take the immersion studio. And just a quick note on the chat. So Matt and I probably won't be able to answer the chat questions. I see that Joan and some others are fielding those questions, so that's great. But Matt and I won't be able to come back to those until the end of the presentation, just to let you know. So as I said, pre-autumn, you take an immersion studio. So this is essentially a 5-day design sprint. You're paired up in teams. You work on a problem space that's presented to you. So this year, I presented the students with post-humanism and design, and we talked about designing for harmonious cohabitation between human and non-human agents. And they created some amazing things in very little time. And then in the autumn, before I go quarter by quarter, I just want to speak to these colors. So this kind of light blue marks studios. So immersion studio, ideation studio, prototyping studio. The green marks what would be called traditional graduate level lecture or seminar courses. So user research, UI software and technology, designing interactive systems. And then the orange all has to do with capstone. So you can see that we start capstone work in winter, and then that moves into a research studio and then a capstone studio in summer. And then the gray Dub seminar, this is a course you take every quarter, and it's really revolves around the Dub community and the speakers who come into the Dub community, as well as some activities around those presentations. So that's a kind of a brief overview, and I think we're going to dive in a bit more in the next slides. Studios, yeah, so studios are really opportunities for you to create something. So whether it's in person or online, so whether it's using physical sticky notes or on Miro, as you've seen in previous slides, studios are a time in which you're given a problem space. You go through the cycle of kind of doing research, ideating, prototyping, getting feedback, execution on a final product. And these are also opportunities for you to create something that you might later include in your portfolio, for example. And as you noticed, we have immersion studio, ideation studio, prototyping studio, and then research studio and capstone studio. Lectures. So lectures are the 3 courses that were in green in the blocks And they really are more about getting a foundational understanding of some really important parts of the puzzle, right? So these are either structured as lectures or seminars. You'll do readings. So right now, for example, the students are taking usability and user research, and that's for folks to understand different methods and techniques and how to analyze data. And as I said earlier, to understand where different practices come from as far as disciplinary approaches and strengths and weaknesses. So this is really just a foundational knowledge that will serve you not only in the course of completing the program, but also in the future in your career. And then Dub Seminar, as I mentioned, so when we're all together, we meet together and there's free food and we have speakers come from all over the world to talk about their research and their practice. And then right now, Dub Seminar is being organized online. So we attend on Zoom, and in a way that's nice because we get to, I think, have even more speakers from different places because we don't have the issue of travel contingencies. And then again, Joan and Fontaine can speak to this, but usually in Dub Seminar, you attend on Wednesdays and you hear the guest speakers, and then you create some notes. They're working on visual notes right now. And then as you go throughout the year, you move from kind of engaging in these speaker series and taking notes to actually you being the one to facilitate conversations around different topics that come up related to HCI and design. Capstone. So I did see some questions in Capstone. Capstones are team-based. They're not individual-based. So you're partnered, and I see Jacob, who's here with us, up there in the top left-hand corner with his team from last year. In winter, we start forming the teams for Capstone, and you meet either your advisor or sponsor from industry in the winter. And then in the spring, you focus on that problem space from the position of research. And you're just doing research for the spring about your capstone project. And then in the summer, that's when you start ideating and prototyping. And by the end of summer, you have a concept that you've developed, usually some high fidelity prototypes, essentially a pitch deck and a video. So that's how it kind of culminates. And we're might be pushing in the future to do a little bit more around implementation as well. So that's how Capstone finishes off the program. Okay, so going back to this, might make more sense now that you've heard a little bit about the studios and the lecture courses as well as the timing. These are your core courses at MHCID. So as Matt noted, and I think he's going to talk about in a little bit, you take electives around these, and you can take electives from anywhere in the University of Washington as long as they're relevant to the degree. But Matt will speak, I believe, much more to electives here in a minute.
So yeah, electives are what we add on to that core curriculum. And basically, as I mentioned earlier, you only need 7 credits worth of electives credits in the course of the year. That usually breaks down to taking 2, maybe 3 electives over the course of the 4 quarters. So electives are around the edges. They give you a chance to either dive into something that you come in with pre-existing knowledge of to really build some depth in an area that you are more interested in, or they're a chance for you to do some backfilling. If you come in and you feel weak in a certain area and you want to build that up before you go out into a career, you can use your electives to fill in a gap that you might come with you. Most people take electives from our 4 sponsoring departments, so computer science and engineering, human-centered design and engineering, the division of design, where Audrey spoke to us from, or the information school. You don't have to take it from those schools though. You can also take any graduate level course that's related to the degree, as long as you can get into it from some of the other departments on campus. And yeah, so you can find a list of some of the most common electives on our website. Just know that when you're looking at electives, you're not planning out a full curriculum. You're planning out sort of an augmentation of what you're getting in the core.
And I just want to jump in and say that we are now offering our own electives too as a program. So I know Joan mentioned earlier in chat that she's taking Interfaces Lab, so that's an elective that our program is offering not only to our students, but to other folks from some of the 4 supporting units that I talked about earlier. And then in the winter, there will be an advanced Interfaces Lab that will focus more. I saw in the chat earlier, someone had a question about emerging technologies. So Advanced Interfaces Lab will be focusing more on not only service design, but on AR and VR, on physical interactions, on voice interactions, and this type of thing, tangible objects as well. So we're proud that we're now offering electives too, which is great.
Awesome. Yeah, that's been fun to see that develop this year. So I want to talk a little bit about careers and career outcomes as you make your way through the program and what we do to help you out. The image on this slide, by the way, is a little cryptic, but last week we had a gathering with alumni coming back to chat with current students and get to know each other. And of course, in this day and age, a gathering means a gathering online. We used a tool called GatherTown that worked pretty well to allow sort of informal conversations. And that's what that random image is there. So when it comes to career development and what we offer through this program, there are a lot of different elements that we build in throughout the program. But first and foremost, I think it's important to reiterate that our perspective is that the best way you can help your career is to dive into the learning offered in this program. You'll be a better designer, you'll be a better researcher to the extent that you really get as much as you can out of the coursework here and build up that depth of knowledge about not just how to do things, but why you're doing them. Beyond that, though, we do build a lot of other elements of career development into your year here. The first of these is brown bag sessions. So I offer a series of workshops throughout the year where I introduce various different topics related to the nuts and bolts of the job search. So we have sessions on things like networking and resume building, all the way through the different elements of the interview process, including sessions on things like the whiteboard challenge, the design take-home challenge. All of those different pieces we take the time to introduce in workshops throughout the year, especially in the later half of the year. As the year goes on, those sessions turn from introductions of those topics into practice sessions. So you get a lot of chance to practice answering interview questions, those dreaded tell me about a time when ... interview questions. So brown bags happen throughout the year. In addition to that, in the spring quarter, we offer a 1-credit elective on portfolio development. This is a course that we bring in a creative director from a local design agency. In his position, he basically spends much of his day reviewing portfolios for designers and deciding who to bring in for interviews. And he comes in and teaches this course that really allows you to ramp up your work on your portfolio and get ready to start interviewing on the job market. You'll talk both about how to develop your online portfolio, but perhaps even more importantly, how to develop your portfolio presentation during the interview, where you're telling the story, usually with a slide deck, of the projects you've worked on and how they all demonstrate different elements of the skills you bring to the role you're interviewing for. Beyond those 2 courses, in the summer, or beyond portfolio and brown bags, in the summer, we also have a career conference. Our career conference is designed to give you a chance to practice interviewing, different modes of interviewing with real hiring managers and recruiters from companies. So this last summer, even though we were online and doing it remotely, we had a little over 70 different industry professionals come in and hold sessions one-on-one for portfolio review, behavioral interviewing, and whiteboard challenges, where you had a chance to pretend you were in an interview, give your spiel, and get immediate feedback from someone who does this for a living. That comes in the summer. Throughout the year, another element of our career development is really our alumni network. Because we work in this cohort model where you are together with a group of people working pretty intensely for a year, we find that our alumni are really loyal and really eager to give back and talk to current students and help them out along the way. It's very easy as a current student to reach out to an alum and set up an informational interview. You can do that pretty much on your own without too much direction, but we've also developed a couple of different alumni activities that happen throughout the year. One is the alumni mentoring program, where each student is paired with typically 2 alumni, and the alumni mentoring program allows you to have a relationship with a couple alum that you're not just bound to a single or a couple informational interview type meetings. You can go back to the same person time after time throughout the year and really kind of build up a deeper relationship. And you don't have to worry about getting all of your questions answered in one session. You can kind of take your time and get to know each other and then address topics that are relevant at the moment. We also hold a series of panels where we bring back alumni to talk about working in different industries or different areas. So we'll have a panel on doing user research at different companies. We'll have a panel on working in design agencies, maybe one on enterprise UX, things like that. Our alum will be back together with us pretty regularly throughout the year. And then we do things like that online happy hour in that first graphic. Finally, beyond all of these activities, it's worth mentioning for career development that you have access to myself and also the faculty here and Amanda, teaching faculty, to work with throughout the year as well on your career development. Students come to see me during the program, but also as alumni when they have career questions and want advising that's more tailored to your specific needs at the time. You know, we may have a workshop on something, but it may not be happening right when you need that information. So one-on-one counseling is also a really helpful part of our career development tools. Beyond the program itself, we're a small program, but we're embedded within the University of Washington, which offers a whole lot of resources as a big university can. The most important of these for career development for our students is that DUB community that Amanda spoke about, the design, use, build community of professors and graduate students who are working in HCI and studying it. That community can be really helpful in opening up access to different areas in the industry and opening your eyes to different potential directions you might want to take things. Outside of DUB, the university, of course, has a big career center that offers workshops almost every day on various elements of the job search and career discovery. They hold industry workshops or industry introduction sessions and those massive career fairs that you might remember from undergraduate. Those things are available. Not everybody takes advantage of them, but they can be a good complement to what you're getting directly within the program. And then finally, I think it's worth mentioning in this context, just the value of being in Seattle when it comes to studying HCI. Outside of the San Francisco Bay Area, Seattle is arguably the next best place, if not the best place, to be a professional working as a UX designer or a user researcher. That's because of the strong technology industry here in the city. We really have a lot of the biggest companies and their spin-offs, a lot of more moderate-sized companies that have developed roles for UX designers, for user researchers, and know how valuable you can be. This means that the city itself is just a great place to run into people and to have easy conversations with people who are practicing the industry that you're interested in and who speak sort of the same language that you're learning as you go through the program. Meetups right now, of course, are all happening online, but when we're back into an in-person session, there's almost an opportunity every week to go somewhere around the city and have a discussion with students and professionals in this industry about topics that are of interest to you. Being in Seattle is really a great resource for figuring out sort of what direction you want to go in with your career. I would say when it comes to career outcomes, I won't talk too much about that here. We've got information on our website that you can look at. Even this year with our students who graduated this August, we've been seeing remarkably good hiring hiring experiences for them that about the same rate as previous alumni cohorts, despite sort of the wonky economy right now. Typically about 70% of our alumni are employed within 3 months of graduating, and then it goes up from there. So take a look at our website. You can learn more about career outcomes from there. And you can, of course, talk to our students and alum as well as we go along. So moving from everything that Amanda and I have presented, we've kind of laid out this wonderfully coherent, structured discussion about how everything fits together. I think it's good to switch from that to hear from people who actually are living it or who have lived it and get their perspective on MHCID and what goes on here. So next up, I'd like to introduce our student panel. As I mentioned at the beginning, we've got Jacob and Kitty from the class that recently graduated, the class of 2020, and Joan and Fontaine from the current student class. And I think it would be helpful first just to ask each of you to give a little bit of an introduction. What kind of background did you come from before you came into the program? And why did you choose MHCI+D when you were deciding where to go as a graduate student? We'll just start in the upper left of the slide with Jacob. Jacob, take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jacob. Coming into the program, I actually was just graduated from my undergrad, which was also at UW, and I was in informatics, human-computer interaction. So I had some design experience coming into the program. And I chose the program for multiple reasons. First, the obvious one that really piqued my interest in the beginning was I was just recognized as one of the top HCI masters in the industry. And it was like very much focused like on design and the design process and like going through that process like many other times. And while like other programs had like other focuses, I feel like to the MHCI+D one like was focused on the studio based like design process. And the most interesting thing to me and what was most important to me and ended up being the most important after like I finished the program was the studio based model. And that's something I loved, where I was just in the room with 40 other people and 40 other designers like me attacking like the same problem. And I feel there's like no other place in the world, like no company can even like hire 40 people to attack like one single problem. And that kind of environment that the program gave me was very helpful in my learning. And I made like some lifelong acquaintances and friends like through the program. And yeah, that the environment the program gave me was like the biggest reason why I chose this master's over other ones. And some other quick pros is like it being only an 11-month program over 2 years was very nice. And another huge pro for me was it being in Seattle. I love Seattle, and I think Seattle's like a great city. And if you look at like some of the other cities that the other like top master programs in, it's like nowhere near as great as Seattle. And Seattle's also just a great city for like tech and for design. Matt kind of touched on this earlier, but there's like a lot of great companies in Seattle, and pairing that with the environment that the program gives you, which is like 40 other people who are like really into design and into their education as you guys take advantage of Seattle together. And like just through the cohort, like I've had friends to go with me to like design meetups downtown and explore the city with, or like I've been to like Microsoft's campus a handful of times just with my cohort mates to learn more about design and go to talks there. So yeah, those are some of the reasons why I really enjoyed the program and I chose this one.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, Jacob. Kitty.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Kitty. I'm also from the recent cohort 7. I'm classmate of Jacob. Very nice to meet you all. I am right now an interaction designer at Intuitive Surgical. So our company make robotic assisted surgical arms to improve clinical outcomes of patients through a minimally invasive surgery. So I work for the service design team. Basically, I design digital products around the robotic arms. So before I joined MHCID, I studied economics and accounting for my undergrad at UC San Diego. And then after that, I 1 year working experience as an accountant in the Bay Area. And about 3 years ago, I started to got myself very interested in UX design. human-centered design because of the job that I was doing at that time in the accounting field. Everything was very slow and low tech, disjointed it, and the tools that I was using every day was very complex and hard to use. And that's how I started to, got interested in UX. And also, luckily, at that time, my friend introduced me to UX. And then I got myself the first class studying the foundation of user experience design at UC Berkeley Extension, and I was hooked by that class. And since then, basically, I spent 1 year before I joined the program. I already spent 1 year studying the foundation of UX at UC Berkeley Extension, and also I have 3 UX related internship before I joined the program. Yeah, so that's pretty much about me. And
What
then
drew you to
very
the
nice to
program,
meet you.
Katie?
Oh yeah. Why I choose the program? I think when I picked this program, I have a very clear goals in my mind because I already have 3 design internship at that time, and I knew that what I was incompetent in. So firstly, when I was at work, I saw myself that was not very good at being very methodical and solving complex user problems, and was very short on communication skills, and also having the ability to clearly articulate design decisions with sound rationale. And that's how I started to have a very thoughtful consideration in going back to school. And that's the #1 reason why I choose to come to MHCID, because I know that MHCID was a studio-based cohort, and then it would give me a lot of opportunity to practice the skill or learn the skill that I want to learn. And secondly, it's also because of the location and the strong alumni network here. When I was just firstly chances my career from accounting to UX, it was really hard. I have a really hard time to get help and guidance from the industry experienced designer. But because of this program, I make a lot of establish a lot of good relationship with industry designers, and then just basically learn from them along the way. And it ends up right here, right now, I have my first full-time interaction design job at Intuitive. Yeah, so thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, Kitty. Next up, one of our current students who probably you've seen a little bit on some of our social media introductions. Joan, do you want to give an introduction to yourself, background, and why you chose this program?
Sure. So my background is in visual design. I was an undergrad as a fine arts student a very, very long time ago. I went in and did graphic design for a long time. And then through that process as a graphic designer, they basically pushed me to do everything because I was at small companies or like an in-house firm. So I did everything from like social media to like email marketing to and website stuff. So then I did my first pivot to front end development and actually went more to the front end development side of things for a while. And that's when I learned about UX design. We were redesigning the new website, and we were doing like design thinking workshops with an outside company that was advising for us. And I just thought that was the best thing ever. And so I took a certification just to add that like one extra skill like under my front end development degree, and then I was hooked. So for that certification, I actually became the TA the year after I took it. And then the year after that, I applied to this program, and here I am. So I decided on this program pretty much what Jacob and Kitty said. Like I already lived in Seattle for a long time. I love Seattle. I didn't want to leave. My whole network is here, and all my friends are at the big tech companies. And I was like, oh well, if they're already there, then maybe I can join them. So I thought that was neat. And also, yes, the alumni network is fantastic. And the cohort model is great. And I really like the studio environment. And I think maybe it was my portfolio that got me in. So not only did I pick this program, it picked me. So that was great. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you. And Fontaine, how about you?
Yeah, hi everyone. So I'm Fontaine. I'm from Vancouver, where my background was basically, well, first my undergrad was in psychology, and then I worked for about 8, 9 years, so quite a long time in healthcare over there. And what I did, so my work spanned a lot of different things. So I don't have a design background. I see that's one of the questions in the chat. And I mean, a lot of quite a few people in our cohort also come from various backgrounds. And so for me, my work had spanned anything from like clinical research to towards the end, more quality improvement work in healthcare, and also moving towards service design. And I found myself more and more interested in design and trying to use the design process in my work, but not feeling like I had a foundation in these skills. So that was one of the reasons why I really wanted to go back to go to school specifically for this, is to get more hands-on experience doing design and more formally make that career shift for me. So it was a pivot for me. And I had always been interested in doing design, and I never, it took me a while until I was like, yes, I want to go and get my master's. And so for me, one of the reasons why I chose MHCID was because when looking for programs, a lot of the programs, at least in my city or in my area, were for sort of 4-year undergrad degrees. So I didn't want to go back and do that. I definitely wanted to do a master's degree. And so length of the program, when comparing, I had applied to a few programs, and I also was admitted to HCD. So if anybody has questions about that, I can talk about that as well. But I chose MHCID due to the cohort studio model, like everybody else talked about. I really wanted to get to know who I was working with, and I feel like sometimes that can get lost in a bigger program. Especially, I know for me in my undergrad, it was difficult to make lasting connections, but I felt like with MHCID's model, I could really get to know people and have that those connections carry forward in my career wherever I go from here. And length of time, like I said, was a big factor for me. This program, is 1 year, and I'm very eager to also get back to the working world at this point in my life. And so that was one thing. And then the format was another reason. So I liked the idea that there were a core set of courses that I could move forward with. Instead of having to pick and choose. So that's something to talk about. I mean, you still get electives, so you still get to choose a bit and explore, but I really like that the core courses were set. And I like that the classes were during the day. And again, I think everybody else talked about Seattle, and it's a big tech hub here. There are a lot of opportunities around. It's a great network here, and I can see myself living here as opposed to some of the other cities. And so I was thinking about where I want to build my network. Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you all. A question for you, both for Jacob and Kitty, having gone through the full year, and for Joan and Fontaine, who are now almost 2 months into the program. That feels like either a lot longer or a lot shorter, depending on the day. I wonder if you could talk a little about what the day-to-day life is like. We see the grid layout of all the courses and the curriculum, and we talk about our philosophy and these big principles. What's it like on a day-to-day basis in the program? Relaxing, kickback, easy, collaborative? Open it up to any of you.
Okay, I can talk about this a little bit. So my experience is very clearly broken up into 2 parts, obviously, which like the first 6 months was the pre-pandemic, and then the last 6 months was more online. But pre-pandemic, I would like wake up early. A lot of the classes are in the morning, or I would have like a group meeting in the morning, and I would go to classes. And the classes, since it's like a small group and every single class is with just your tight knit cohort, it's a very comfortable space, and you ask questions. And like almost every class, there's activities or crits with teammates. And then after lecture or class, most people stay around, and you can mingle or get like lunch with your classmates, and then you can work with your groups inside the cohort. The studio is like very much your space, and there's a lot of space and resources for you to work with groups there, and just like being able to like see all the other groups working encourages you to go up and ask them and just give good, quick feedback, and encourages talking. And then even afterwards, you can use the cohort space for other things such as just like lunches or breakfasts. And this type of stuff was like, this type of normal day was actually like a very invaluable experience for me, especially once we went online. And I look back on this time really fondly, where I would just work with my team or work with classmates in the studio like almost all day long. Because the program can get pretty intense or like time consuming at times. And then post COVID, things were very similar, but I would wake up and attend lecture online. And then after lecture ended, I would mainly just meet with my groups on my capstone team online to work through the program, work through the project, or to talk about things. But then there's still, I'm sure like Joan, like the new cohort members that are here today can talk about online a bit more, but I would spend like a lot of my class time like working on my portfolio since I was at home more too. Yeah, I'll let them answer if they have anything else about online portion.
Yeah, the online portion is actually, I feel like we did a good job bringing it online. I feel like all the professors spent a lot of time thinking about how they were going to bring things online. And for Immersion Studio, I was like, how is this going to work? But I mean, it worked out really well using Miro, and then Figma is so collaborative as well. I feel like it takes more time to collaborate online, but it's not impossible, and we're definitely getting over any humps that that could be there. So I think it's successful. Fontaine, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Well, I like not having a commute for one thing. So that's a big plus. But I think also like it's been going like as good as can be expected. I think, and way better than I expected in terms of online. I don't have that frame of reference for what it would have been like in person. But I think I actually enjoy having, so we use Miro a lot. Which is like this online platform, almost like a whiteboard. Imagine you could put sticky notes and stuff on it. It's very visual. So we found a lot of really great online tools that work for collaboration. And yeah, I don't know. It's been going well. I think it's good.
Awesome.
Yeah, there are a few downsides. Like, it's hard to just look around and see what other people are doing. I feel like that is the biggest downside, that you feel pretty siloed, because when you meet online, it's very intentional. Like, you say, okay, our group is meeting at this time, but you're not like in a big room where you can just walk around and see what everyone's doing.
I will add though.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, just really quickly.
Go ahead. No,
oh, yeah.
Jacob, you go
Since
first.
it is also like, but since it is still like the cohort model, everyone there is like there for 1 year, and everyone's like takes this experience really seriously. So even when, like, for example, my cohort moved online, we still like everyone makes the extra effort to get the most out of it, and like still meet up and like talk and like share our work. And yeah, Kitty, go ahead too.
Yeah, I just want to add on Fontaine and John's online experience, because I just started my work like 3 weeks ago, and I found that my work actually didn't really have a lot of difference from my capstone project, because we use the same tool and we do Zoom meeting all the time, and a lot of the activity that I did at work was very similar to how I did it in the capstone project. So I found it very valuable for me, because I can, pick up on this very fast at work, and I can apply what I have learned immediately at work. So definitely, I think the online experience for MHCID, it was really great. Yeah. Thank you. That's all.
Thanks. Yeah. I think that's a good thing to have in mind as we hopefully are going to make it to a post-COVID world before too long. Is a lot of the technology companies are learning about what can be done online, and being proficient in collaborating and designing online is actually a pretty important skill these days. So I'd love to keep chatting forever with the four of you, but I want to ask one more question before we move out of the student section and into the last little bits of this, and that's all four of you represent people who have successfully applied to this program. It's a really selective program, hard to get into. Do you have any tips for future applicants? What did you do that worked?
Okay. Yeah, I don't, yeah, I actually get this question a lot. I don't actually like know the criteria that it is to get you to get in the program. But what I've seen like worked and what worked for me is having like what's your goals with like design? Like what's your goals with UX design or product design, and how are you gonna, and how's the program gonna help you reach those goals? And what about the program is like specific like interest to you over like other programs? So I just talked about like my journey through design and what my goals in design were and how the program was going to help me reach those goals.
Awesome.
So for me, when I apply, I think I did a couple things that really helped me to put my application together. I think the very first thing is you really want to spend some time to really understand yourself. I took my career transition very slowly, step by step, because I want to make sure that this is something that I really want to invest my time and the rest of the life. That's what I'm thinking right now to work on. So if you understand yourself, just like Jacob said, you will know what your goals are, what you like and what you don't like. And then you also want to do some research on, what's the career outcome of this, program. You want to focus more on the research or the design part. It doesn't mean that you need to be sure that you want to become a designer or a researcher, like by the time that you get here. But I do strongly suggest that maybe look at the job description of all this job title to understand what these peoples are doing, to help you get to understand or familiar yourself with this industry. And then of course, study the program to see what are the curriculum or the events that can, help you achieve your goal. And then at the end, tell your story, right? Put your experience, connect the dots all together, make it into a package, because we are not just evaluating you on your GPA score. We're also looking at from other dimension of who you are, like your extracurriculum work, your side project. All those are very valuable for us to evaluate who you are and if you're a right fit for the program. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
So for me, it was learning the most I could learn about the program and trying to figure out like why the program was right for me and why I was right for this program. I think that was the biggest thing. I think the other thing that helped me a lot, other than like watching every single YouTube video and like talking with Matt and then going and talking with some of the people in C7, it was sending all my application materials and specifically my personal statement to the people that I knew that had PhDs and master's degrees, because they're the ones that I knew that like had applied to tons and tons and tons of programs and like really exercised that muscle of like writing these personal statements. So after getting all their critiques, I think I must have revised my personal statement like 100 times. Like I'd spent months on this thing, like, right, I'd spend like a couple days writing and rewriting, and then I'd send it to them and I'd see red marks like all over, and I'd send it to multiple people and they would just mark up everything, question everything that I said. And I think that was therapeutic. It was a good experience. And of course the portfolio stuff, I did that too. So if anyone has questions about that, hopefully I can help.
So for me, I was really nervous about the application because I didn't have a design background. I wasn't sure, if I would be a good fit. And so, like everyone said, kind of looking into what the program offers, but then really also looking at on the website, there are links to all the portfolios and bios of the past cohorts. So I did spend quite a bit of time when preparing my materials, looking at, what do their portfolios look like? What kind of work do they do? And how does that map and fit into my experiences? And so what I did when I was preparing my supplementary materials, I didn't have a portfolio coming in because I don't come from a design world. I tried to basically take one of my projects that I had worked on and try to lay it out and see how that fits the like how people talk about design and what design is and how I could make that fit. And I tried to tell that story essentially in the same way that you might see on a lot of these portfolio websites. And so I found that really helpful. And then also, just like everybody else said, reflecting quite a bit on your own journey and why you want to do this and what your values are. And seeing how that fits with the values of the program and what design is really important, especially for your personal statement. And yeah, I think those are sort of the more concrete things that I did. And even now during the program, we do a fair bit of reflection about our values and who we want to be as designers coming out. So I think that would, it's a pretty strong statement of who you are. So.
Awesome. Thank you all. Again, I'd love to just have you all run this thing the whole way through. It's great to get your insights into this. If we could, we would all be giving you a big round of applause right now. Jacob, Kitty, Joan, and Fontaine. I believe that all four of these folks will be hanging out in chat and then here for the Q&A afterwards as well. So they'll still be around. But thanks again for pitching in on this. Next up, we wanted to talk a little bit about having heard from some people who were right for this program. Overall, what do we think is, who do we think is right for this program? And for this, Amanda, if you're there, it's all yours.
Yeah, I am here. I've been trying to hold down chat while
A brave effort.
while folks were while our current students and alums were speaking. So, who is right for MHCID? You should be curious and thoughtful about people and technology. You should find meaning in collaboration. I'm going to come back and talk about that a little bit more. Be self-directed and driven, as folks have discussed, current students and alums, and also in chat. This is a full-time graduate program. So you're going to be working 40 to 50 hours a week as a full-time graduate student. And you really have to own your education, right? We talk a lot about dealing with ambiguity and taking ownership and having initiative. So it's really important. If you're not someone who does well in that situation, then it's going to be challenging for you. An impulse toward creation. And what we mean by this is you need to be willing, we talk about a bias toward making, you need to be willing to kind of go for it and start ideating and start sketching and start figuring things out. That doesn't mean that we don't have folks in our program who are researchers. I myself am an academic researcher, so I have a PhD in information science, and that's my background. So we certainly have folks who are researchers and want to go into research, but a lot of the studio courses revolve around creation. So if you're uncomfortable with that, it would be, I think, really challenging for you. You need to be able to dedicate one full year, both in time and finances. So there were some questions in chat about, can you work part-time? Can you work full-time? If you want to work full-time, I would recommend you take a look at Human-Centered Design and Engineering. Their master's program is set up for folks who work full-time. Also, UCI, University of California, Irvine, has a program for folks who are working full-time. So we are not for folks who want to work full-time while they're in graduate school. You really have to be full-time graduate student. And then of course, be willing to dedicate the finances to it. And eager to work in the cohort and studio model. So I'm going to come back to that when I said I would talk about finding meaning in collaboration, that doesn't mean you can't be an introvert. I'm definitely an introvert. The current students have heard this a lot, you know, but you have to be willing to kind of push through some of the challenges of working with other people and engaging in collaboration. So in my mind, coordination and collaboration are two different things. Coordination is you get assigned your task, everybody goes off and does their task on their own and then comes back together, right? That's not what we do. We really focus on collaboration, and sometimes that takes longer. Sometimes it's more frustrating, but we believe it results in more learning about yourself as a person, more learning about yourself as a designer or researcher, and better products in the end, products and services. And so if you're really like a lone wolf and you don't want to work in teams, this is not the program for you, because everything is going to be in teams. And if you don't want to work with a cohort, you, as Audrey talked about MDes, you know, MDes is a 2-year program where you do coursework and then you have a year with your own thesis by yourself. That's quite different, right, from what we do. Ours is really focused on collaboration and the cohort model and working together. So just be aware of that as you apply for and potentially come into the program.
Awesome. So the last little bit before we go to Q&A here, I think, is to just talk briefly about the application process itself. There's a lot of information about applying on the website, and we don't want to just go over things that you can look up in a minute or two online, but just to go over these important dates first. January 15th is the date you want to have in mind. That's the deadline to apply. There's no benefit to getting your application in early. We don't start reviewing applications until after the 15th, but that's a hard deadline. So materials in by January 15th. After that, March 15th is the next date to have 2 months later. That's our target date for sending out offers of admission and waitlist notification. So you apply on January 15th. By about March 15th, you hear the outcome of the admissions process. And then April 15th, should you be offered a spot in the next cohort, you have until April 15th to decide whether to accept or decline that spot. So the 15th in the new year are the day of the month to have in mind for all of your application processing. The materials for the application, we can answer questions about this, and you can email me about specific questions. But there is, again, information. It's pretty straightforward what you need to submit. So you'll submit your transcripts. You need to have a 3.2 GPA using one of the methods that we offer that you can use. You need 3 letters of recommendation. You put your resume in the application as well. And then the 2 important pieces are the personal statement and the supplementary material section. The personal statement is where you pull all the pieces together and tell your story about why this is the next right step for you and how you fit into this thing called MHCI+D. Supplementary materials are optional, but they are strongly recommended. So again, check out some of the ideas in there. We call it supplementary materials because we think that it's possible for you to show us work, not just from design background, but from other work areas that you might have done projects in. So strongly recommend, if possible, submit supplementary materials. Just know that every year there are people in the cohort who successfully apply and get in and do well in the program, even though they didn't do supplementary materials with the application. So if you can't figure out how to make your particular background work, it's not required. It's just optional, but strongly recommended. And then obviously there's an application fee. So we could talk more about those things as we go to Q&A, but those are the pieces of the application. No GREs. If you're an international applicant, you do have to demonstrate your English language proficiency. The normal ways to do this are either through having been taught in English as an undergrad or a TOEFL exam. Especially this year, due to COVID restrictions, there are a few alternative methods to demonstrate your English language ability. So if you're an international applicant, be sure to check out the website for some of those different options. And reiterate that you need to have graduated from a 4-year accredited program. There are some 3-year bachelor's degrees out there that without supplementary study are not enough to make you eligible to apply for graduate school at the UW. So 4-year program at an accredited school, and you do the conversion of your GPA from your home country grading system into the 4-point system. Those are the basic pieces of the application. I think next we're going to move to Q&A, and I'm going to put up the next slide first and then probably take down the slide share so I can see the chat. But a reminder again, application deadline is the 15th. I would recommend spending some time on our website. I've mentioned it a few times along the way, but you can look at capstone project videos and get a sense of what the summative big project of the year can look like. We have all of our capstone projects up on the website. There's videos with tips on how to put together your application materials on the How to Learn More page. You can learn all about the program through curriculum pages and things like that at the main website. And then if you have particular questions to your own circumstances, feel free to reach out and email me at mhcid@uw.edu. That'll reach me and I'll help with anything I can. So thanks to Amanda and Jacob, Kitty, Fontaine, and Joan. And now we're going to move to the Q&A section where we basically look through some of the chat questions and respond to those. If you've asked a question a long time ago and are still waiting for a response, it might be worth copying and pasting that question to more recent, and we'll see the bottom of the chat as well. So thanks everyone. I'm going to stop the screen share so we can see the chat from here.
And I just want to underscore, I've directed folks on chat to our website. Our website has so much information there. We have a table, I think Fontaine shared it, breaking down a comparison between our program and MHCID and MDes and a program in computer science and engineering and a program in human-centered design and engineering. So it's really a wealth of information. There are FAQs about applying to the program. So I just really encourage folks to take a look at the website as well as the YouTube channel. Matt put together a great video about application tips. I think Joan mentioned that she watched it several times in the process of applying. It's a great video. So all those resources are there, and depending on them and using them will pay off in the application process. I think that's what I heard both Fontaine and Joan say.
So looking at questions, I'm going to start with the most recent ones just because I can see them most easily. Now, someone asked about one of the options for GPAs is to do your last 2 years of study. And they said, well, what if I'm still studying in my senior year? We're looking, if you're using the 2-year GPA method for the application, we're looking for 2 full years of study grades. So if you're right now a senior, you're going to have to go back into your sophomore year to get 2 full years worth of study. It also gets complex if you were in a couple of different programs. The equivalent of 2 full years of study is what we're using as our guideline for that. Is this program considered a STEM eligible program? Yes, this is a STEM eligible master's degree. So international students, that means you get 3 years of work eligibility under OPT.
I think, Matt, the one question that I saw that hasn't been answered is international student who's at UW or graduated from UW, does that mean I don't have to take a language exam?
Absolutely. If you, and not just UW, but if you graduated from a school in the US with a degree, then you've already satisfied the English language requirement. There are other countries that also works for, Canada, England, other places. You can also have been taught in English in a non-English speaking country. If your entire education was in English, that'll satisfy it. Look on the website under the section on satisfying the English language requirement, and you'll see that in there. But yeah, no TOEFL necessary if you come from the UW with a degree already.
A question about do we need to submit how the GPA was calculated and what courses are included? And Matt, before you take that question on, I would say if y'all have really specific questions about your unique circumstances, the best thing to do is to reach out to Matt and to schedule a time to talk with him, because it's really difficult to get into the nuances of things in this kind of session. So I would say, schedule a time with Matt. He works like crazy and seems to be always available, although not on the weekends, right, Matt? You know, but schedule a time to chat with him about your individual circumstances.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
I think there was a question earlier that Kitty answered in chat that I would love to give other folks an opportunity to answer. So someone asked about favorite classes that folks have taken. I know the current students haven't taken that many classes yet, but they could still speak to it. So Jacob, do you want to speak to favorite classes?
Right. No, my favorite classes are actually the same too as Kitty's, which is Ideation Studio and Capstone Studio. Kitty went into detail in chat, but I also think I love like all the core studio classes. So there's each quarter there's a core studio class which goes Ideation Studio, Prototyping Studio, Research Studio, into Capstone Studio. And I feel each one you learn like a good amount of like a really strong skills from like ideation, just like you go through the design process really well with a lot of guidance. Prototyping, you learn a lot of different ways to prototype. Research, you learn like all the different types of methods of research, and then Capstone, you really put it all together and to learn everything. So I really just enjoyed all the studio-based classes throughout the program, and it really made the program for me.
Fontaine and Joan, do you want to answer? I know you're one quarter in, but and I will not be offended if you do not say user research.
I was probably going to say the same Ideation Studio, or I actually really liked Immersion Studio, even though it's just the week. So that's the week-long sort of course that we take right before all like the quarter starts, and it introduces you to the entire design process, and it's a crazy week, intense week, because you go through the entire design process in the 1 week. But I loved it because, again, it was the first thing that we did. And before it, I was so nervous before it started. And then you go through this like really fast week where you go through the whole thing. And right after that, I was like, and it was so much fun. You come up with, when you're doing ideation, we come up with all sorts of fun ideas and ridiculous ideas and all sorts of ideas, and it was just really entertaining and funny to work with other people who think the same as you. And at the end of that, I was like, yes, I chose the right program, so that's why I loved it.
I totally agree with you, Fontaine. It was fantastic, and it was like a low threshold of entry. Like we're really guided like each step of the way, and then you just get kind of thrown into the water. And I think I really liked just diving in and then doing it. And since everything was like on a day deadline, like you didn't really have a chance to, really, kind of like be wishy-washy or like ponder things. You just need to like do it and just keep going, which I really like that. And I kind of feel like it's kind of like a fast-paced work environment too, where you only have to focus on one thing. I like that too. Whereas now it's like we have 4 projects and you have like to balance everything. The Immersion Studio was just like, okay, you have one project. This is going to be your life for a week, and then that's it. So that was fun. And I'm also really enjoying the new interfaces lab. I feel like our group has been working really well together and like aligning really well on the design, and I'm also able to help them learn some design work too, so I like that course as well.
I also really quickly want to add that I personally like love the academic side of the program as well, where you get to read like many academic papers and published papers about our discipline of design. And it's just really nice to also be able to like discuss these readings and like talk these readings, not just with your classmates, but with your teachers, and just be able to talk about like a lot of the ethical issues in the industry, such as like privacy, digital well-being, and whatnot. And yeah, just really getting to dive deep into this academic side through the program too, through some of the 3 credit courses, I really enjoyed as well.
So there's a question about backgrounds. Somebody who's done some looking on the website at some of the profiles of alum and the like, and mentioned it seems like there's a lot of graphic designers and visual designers and industrial designers backgrounds in there. I think it's worth mentioning that over half of the cohort in any given year does not come from that arts background. That's definitely a prominent group within any cohort. It's a great way to come into this field, to pivot from something like architecture. But we have quite a few people coming from research backgrounds or backgrounds like psychology. You heard some people in this group right here, like Fontaine, came from there. We have people coming from more of a business background. And it's really valuable as well to bring just about any background into this program, we think. So journalists have come in, teachers in the past have been really great contributors, and technical people with more technical background have also come into here. But we do seek to build a cohort with a wide variety, because you're going to be pretty much living with this group of students. And we think it's really helpful to have a bunch of people with different perspectives that can inspire you along the way. A question for the students and alum maybe to answer. Any room for extracurriculars during the year? It's a pretty rigorous year of work. So what's the extracurricular life in the program like?
So I have an analogy. This program is kind of like a gas. It'll fill up every moment that you let it. Like if you want to go extra deep, that can take more of your time. But I mean, it's also you take control of your own learnings, right? Like if you want to invest the extra time, that it'll pay back dividends, right? But if you don't and you want to do like more self-care, that'll also pay off as well. So you just have to kind of figure out like what your balance is for yourself, if that helps. Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. Kitty, I see that you just wrote in chat, you need to get to actual work meeting now. So thanks so much for coming in.
Yeah, no problem. Nice to meet everyone. And yeah, feel free to reach out to me if you guys have any question about the program. Yeah, bye.
See you soon. Talk to you soon, Kitty. Anybody else want to talk about extracurriculars before we hop on another question? Or? So I'll pick one question out of the recent ones to throw up here. Is somebody mentioned about how the field is constantly changing, and do we worry about being out of date or keeping up to date with what's going on in the field? And I think that's where a graduate degree, this is my perspective, and I'd love to hear Amanda and others on this. That's where a graduate degree really gives you that added benefit, because so much of what you're doing here is learning how to do or why you're doing these things, not just like you're not becoming a sketch expert or a Figma expert. In a few years, Figma will go out of style. And if that's all that your expertise is based on, you don't have too much to rely on. A graduate program is kind of giving you that foundation that, you know, who knows, maybe we're all going to be voice designers in 10 years. And you could still use this to work on that. Amanda?
Yeah, I answered a little bit in chat. I mean, we work really closely with industry folks. Diane Endelsack, who's on our staff, is our communications and outreach manager. She comes from industry, working at Gates Foundation, Vulcan, et cetera, are really well connected. So as Matt talked about earlier, we do career conference, right? We have industry folks come in and provide feedback on portfolios and how to do interviews. And we have capstone sponsors and advisors. We have guest speakers. You know, I think I mentioned earlier, in user research, we have 6 guest speakers coming in 10 weeks to talk about things in industry. Last week, a friend of mine who's a user researcher at Facebook talked about accessibility research and really kind of the cutting edge of what she's doing at Facebook around accessibility research. We're also working on putting together an advisory board for the program. So this is something that we're actively working on. And it's only 11 months. So it's actually sometimes surprising how slowly industry moves, particularly at large companies that are very siloed, right? But you know, as Matt said, we're not focused on tools. So it's not a UX boot camp. We're not focused on like the latest tools because those change. We're really focused on producing graduates who are critical thinkers, who can articulate why they make certain decisions, who can defend the choices they make, who know how to work with other stakeholders. And we trust that you can learn the tools, as well with practice and with time. I would also say that, our faculty are made up of some of the world's leading researchers and scholars, who are teaching things like prototyping, or ideation. So we not only have industry folks, but we have some of the world's leading researchers and scholars at UW who participate in our program. So thank you, Jacob, to that shout out about academic rigor.
Yeah, I know UW has some of like the best not HCI professors on camp in the whole world, and as like a master's student, I feel they take you really seriously and are really and are really open just talking to you and like talking about their research and just helping you out. And there's like really easy access, and it's one of the benefits I personally really enjoyed throughout the program. Yeah.
There was a question about museum exhibition design backgrounds such as VR and AR. Certainly, folks, there's an opportunity in prototyping and capstone to think about emerging technologies. There's also, as I mentioned earlier, a new elective called Advanced Interfaces that I was just looking over the syllabi this morning that's going to cover not only things like service design, but AR and VR and voice interactions. So there's definitely those opportunities. And as Jacob just mentioned, there are folks on campus who are doing this cutting edge work and research who are also available through the DUB community. So one of the things we didn't talk about because it's in more detail, but as an elective, you can always do what's called a directed research group, right? So you can work with a group of researchers, usually PhD students and professors on a particular project. You can also, if someone has the bandwidth, work with a professor to do an independent study too. So there are lots of opportunities. In fact, I think the more difficult thing is saying no. Joan may be facing this, right? So many opportunities that you have to say no to a lot of things.
Yeah. When it comes from coming from sort of a specific background, I think a lot of the question that you'll face is like, am I trying to prepare myself to go back into that background? Or am I coming into the program to look at my options to go elsewhere? And one thing that is tricky in this program is if you're solely focused on a very narrow area. I've talked to a lot of people in sort of game design, for example, or other areas, or automotive technology design. We think that what you learn in this program can really apply well in those fields, but you can't expect to come here and only do projects in that narrow interest area. You're coming here to learn the methods and techniques, and you will not always be doing projects in your narrow project space. That's part of being part of a collaborative program, is we think learning in other realms can then benefit you in what direction you ultimately go in. So if you know that like museum design in that question or game design is all you ever want to focus on, probably this won't work well with a year long of this program. So I suppose we should keep conscious of the time.
Yes, we're at time.
We're at time. So everyone, first, I want to thank you all for coming out today. There were a ton of questions and a ton of chat going on. So if your question didn't get answered, email me, mhcid@uw.edu. Reach out to me. Happy to answer anything I can. We will share a link to the recording of this session once we've got it processed, so you can go back and listen to it if that's of interest. Otherwise, thanks everyone for coming this morning or evening or whatever time of day it is where you are. Thanks especially to Jacob and to Kitty, who had to leave, and Fontaine and Joan. Thanks so much for coming out for this. And then thank you, Amanda, as well. Take care, everyone. It's been great seeing y'all here, and good luck with the application season.